good morning, and welcome to The Skinny for Friday, September 12th. I'm Mitch Perry, the senior political reporter for the Florida Phoenix, joined back this week by my colleague Ray Roick, editor-in-chief of Creative Loafing newspaper. Ray, good to see you.
Great to see you, Mitch. Nice to be back. Thanks for holding it down last week.
Yeah, we're back. It's been a very intense week, of course, of news. And later on the show, now we should say, of course, a couple weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago, we did that debate, the District 5 Tampa City Council race. Of course, that election did take place on Tuesday. We do have two finalists now, Tom Scott and Nia Young. And we're going to talk to another candidate, though, who participated in the election, Tom DeGeorge, in the bottom half of this hour, get his own thoughts about being a first-time candidate, what that was all like. Those candidates were doing debates, forums almost every day for a month. It was really pretty crazy. And you knew this was going to happen in some respects. It wasn't like 12% of people voted in that district, that race on Tuesday. I think the media we were more into it than anybody else. But nevertheless, we're going to have Tom DeGeorge on later on. But before that, though, so this weekend in Tampa, the Florida Democratic LGBTQ plus caucus, Democratic Caucus is holding its summer conference in Tampa. And one of the people who will be at that conference this weekend is a member of the Florida legislature. That's South Florida Democratic State Senator Shevrin Jones, who joins us right now. Good morning, Senator Jones.
Good morning. How are you?
Great to have you here with us, Shev. Thank you so much for your time here. For our listeners, Shevrin Jones represents Miami-Dade County in Florida's 34th Senate District. He's been there since 2020. He's been in the legislature since 2012. He was previously in the Florida House. So, Senator Jones, a lot to talk about state issues, but we got to start obviously with this assassination of Charlie Kirk a couple days ago. I went on your Facebook page. I saw that you had a statement that you posted just right after we learned that he had passed away on Wednesday, and you wrote, quote, "Charlie and I often stood on very different sides of the issue, but this moment goes beyond politics. It speaks to the value of human life, the dangers of hate, and the urgent reminder that disagreement must never turn into violence." You went on to say that, quote, "We must bring the temperature down and choose a better way forward as a nation, as humans, and as people." And let me just say to you personally that as a leader that you are in the community and the legislature, I really appreciate those sentiments. They're very much needed because it seems to me as I look at social media of the last 48 hours, there's so many people who are not turning the temperature down right now. Give me your initial thoughts about what's gone on the last few days here.
Yeah, Mitch. Listen, I stand by what I made mention of is where political violence has no place in our democracy, and no matter the disagreements, no one should lose their life over these politics. And, this tragedy is another reminder that we must bring the temperature down. And I might not have shared Charlie Kirk's views, but he had a daughter, he had a wife, he had a family, and so I acknowledge that. I do also acknowledge the sentiments of individuals who are hurting for various different reasons. But I always push back and make it clear that we can have the discourse, we can have the disagreements, we can have all these various things. But at some point in time, some people have to come to a place where we are bringing not just the temperature down, but we're bringing this back to the main thing, and that is, what does a human life mean to each and every last one of us?
And I feel it's a very dangerous time right now. I read yesterday Jared Moskowitz, congressman from South Florida. He says he's received death threats for a while. AOC talked about that. And I know during the legislative session this year, we had a bill that was passed, SB 268, that creates a public records exemption that prevents the release of home addresses and telephone numbers of legislators and members of Congress. Now, I know some of my friends in the press and I know some First Amendment advocates were kind of down on this bill because they feel, there's one reason is because, as you know, sometimes people say they live in one place and they live somewhere else, and that's the way you can check that. However, I know during the discussion of this bill, we heard from several members of the legislature, including yourself, who I don't know if, Shevrin, you've got yourself have had death threats, but there was people talked about why members of the legislature, why you thought this bill was really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd received death threats when we were doing the parental rights and education, colloquially known as Don't Say Gay. I received a great deal of death threats then, and I had to go to Senate administration and to the Senate president at that time, Senator Pasadomo, and ask for security because of it. And when I filed SB 268, it was mainly because elected officials and how our information of our spouses and our children and ourselves are just out there to the open. But it now begs me to ask the question, does that even matter that we've redacted the information of that? And when we still have to go out into the community, we still have to do town halls, we still have to do these events. That type of legislation don't protect us out there. The question now becomes, how safe is it for us to go out and advocate for our community or advocate for what we believe in? And I'm speaking on both sides.
Yeah.
There's a fear that exists, not just with myself, but with other leaders who I've spoken with, to where now they're asking themselves the question is, do I have to have security every time I go to these events? And this now puts people in a position where they don't want to be in leadership because of that fear.
Yeah, and we heard during that discussion from Hillsborough County, now Republican Susan Valdez, who, frankly alienated a lot of folks last December when she flipped from the Democratic Party to the Republicans. And I know there were people who are angry, and she, I think, said that that she definitely received some threats back then. So, and you mentioned it at the time as well. And we heard from other lawmakers, definitely. So yeah, I just, again, just for our society's sake, I certainly hope that, things can calm down. I don't know if it's going to, but anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about some of the issues. There's a lot of issues, of course, going on in Florida that I know you care a lot about. Let's talk about last week. We made national news again, this time when Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo and Governor DeSantis here in Hillsborough County announced that they're going to try to plan on to propose a ban on vaccine mandates in Florida. And Senator Jones, I think this is interesting because I know you probably followed the coverage. There's a lot of your Republican colleagues who are the ones, let's face it, they're the ones whose votes matter here in this case, whether this is going to happen, because there's some changes that they can do, and I believe they've already done, Ladapo has, in terms of rulemaking, but actually some of this other stuff is going to have to be voted on in law. And I'm not hearing a lot from your Republican colleagues on this, but give us your take about what happened last week with Ladapo.
Reckless, irresponsible, all insensitive. I can pull out a whole bunch of words to describe what happened last week. For you to be the Surgeon General, which is the top doctor of this state, to get on national TV and make a statement like that while school is preparing to start, in the middle of school preparing to start, and parents are probably actively at the doctor getting their children their vaccines, you create a great deal of confusion. It's irresponsible of the governor's office to even allow that to happen. But also, I'm not surprised, because that is the type of thing that the governor's office and the governor have been doing over the past 4 years to create this national outrage, to bring the attention back to Florida for all the wrong reasons. Florida should protect the freedom and safety, but ending vaccine requirements altogether tilts dangerously against public health. Florida already have, Mitch, as you know, we already have safeguards in place where parents can exempt their children for religious and personal reasons. So this idea that now we want to end all vaccine mandates, which has never been done before, brings pause not just to myself, but also to the Republicans and even to some of the Republicans in Washington, D.C. So I think the Surgeon General and the governor might be on an island all by themselves now. Yeah,
I think it's going to be interesting. And of course, you mentioned Ladapo. So we made this press conference a week ago, Wednesday, here in Hillsborough. And then he was on CNN last Sunday morning with Jake Tapper. And that's when he said, he was asked, he said that his team didn't study the impact eliminating vaccine mandates would have on the spread of preventable diseases before announcing the policy. He said that projections on the impact of ending the mandates are unnecessary and that ending them is a moral issue about parental rights. And that just blew up. That became a big national story by itself. And I think, there's a poll, I'll mention this a few minutes from now, but there was a poll that came out a couple days ago, and it definitely shows a majority of Floridians and a plurality of Republicans, I believe over 40% of Republicans, are not good with what this proposal is, at least as they've heard it right now. And pardon the cliche, but the devil is in the details in terms of how this bill was written, and we know that bill hasn't been written at all. Before I wanted to talk to somebody else, but let's talk about, I cover DeSantis is here, Governor DeSantis is here a lot in Tampa Bay area, and I cover him whenever he is here. And so I see the campaigns working, right? And this campaign, to me, it's a campaign right now about this bill, and we'll hear it for the next few weeks, if not months, as the legislative session begins in January. We're also, of course, the campaign's been going on for a while about eliminating property taxes, right? And this is also coincides with the selection of Blaise Ngolia to be chief financial officer, which happened a couple months ago. And we know he's doing his whole Doge efforts. And so, this is, of course, and I think Blaise put something out on Twitter this morning where he basically said, I don't want to hear from local lawmakers about how they have to protect first responders. Like, don't use that as an excuse why you can't cut property taxes. As we know, a lot of the property taxes in major cities and counties go towards fire, police, what have you. So, but my point is, Senator Jones, is that the governor basically gets free reign because the media is going to cover him every day when he's out on the stump talking about different issues, and often it's going to come around to property taxes. So, again, you guys, the legislature is going to meet in January, and there's probably going to be a bill about a constitutional amendment that will be placed on next November's ballot. We have no idea what it is. I did see Toby Overdorf, who was on that select committee, say we're not going to get rid of property taxes outright. He actually said that last week. I don't know if you saw that. So at least I guess that's reassuring to some local officials. But give me your thoughts about all this.
Listen, property taxes are the backbone of funding for our public schools, our fire departments, our libraries, and our local infrastructure. And again, it sounds appealing. It sounds good on billboards and bumper stickers. But yeah, when the rubber meets the road, I would love to hear the state's plan on how they feel. How will they fill that almost $15 billion gap that we will see? And truth be told, I've heard the governor. I've heard the CFO, and I've heard those individuals who advocate for it, for the elimination of property taxes. But what I have not heard is a plan. No one has shared a plan, specifically looking at large counties like Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, and Duval, and Orange. These counties that are very dependent on these property taxes, where the state has not given a plan of what that looks like. Eliminating these without a responsible replacement, it would devastate our classrooms, our emergency services, and basic quality of life. And again, whatever they're trying to do to try to convey a message, when the rubber meets the road and you really talk to constituents about the property taxes and you ask them the right questions, they don't want to eliminate their property taxes, especially if there's going to be a gap in services. And I know this because of the listening tour that we're doing in our district and actually talking to the people. I would suggest that the governor's office, the CFO, and the individuals who support this, they get from behind their desk, they get from behind the podium, and they go sit down and talk to people.
Again, if you're just tuning in, it's 19 minutes past the hour. You're listening to The Skinny here on WMNF 88.5 FM. Mitch Perry with Ray Rowe. We're speaking to South Florida Democratic State Senator Shevrin Jones here about various issues going on in the state right now. Senator Jones, how about this? Of course, another big story in the last month has been the erasure of these street artworks, crosswalks, if you will, street crossings throughout the state that has led to a lot of outrage, a lot of frustration amongst students, parents, activists who raised money, installed and paid in the artworks. They've seen these local and state officials remove them. The governor said he had no choice but to follow the new law, which allows the Florida Department of Transportation to withhold funds for road projects if cities and counties don't comply with artwork removal orders. And then also, the feds have been involved with this too. Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy told every state in the country back in July, roads are for safety, not political messages or artwork. I know there's been some controversy about whether this is actually in a bill or not, but nevertheless, it's happened. And I know you've been outraged by it. Talk about what's going on. Now, I've heard in some of the cities down in South Florida, they've been contesting this. What's the latest down there in some of the cities there?
Well, a lot of them are doing administrative hearings. Yeah. I think Key West or Pompano or Delray, one of them just signed up to join some of these other cities for administrative hearing. And listen, what the governor is saying about this bill is simply not true. It's not accurate at all. The law does not require communities to erase painted streets. As a matter of fact, The bill never even made mention of painted streets. It talked about continuity of street signals and devices and making sure that it's intact with the Department of Transportation or in line with the Department of Transportation requirements. This all is political, and this is what's happening with the governor's office once again, going into local governments and telling them how to run their cities I don't even have the terminology for it because it's just exhausting that we've been dealing with this for 4 years. These individuals were duly elected to be able to run their cities by the people within those communities. And I also want to point out the fact that there has been not one statistic that has come out that said that rainbow crosswalks are the reason of why accidents or anything or has caused the life of anyone. But I can tell you what has. This type of rhetoric that's coming out of the governor's office has not only caused harm, but it has also caused division within this state and within this country. And the fact that we are using roads as a way to create division amongst marginalized people is baffling to me. It's not leadership. It's fake outrage that's coming again from the governor's office.
We've also seen, not only in this case, Senator Jones, but in so many others, I'm talking about with the DOJ or what have you, and that is threatening to remove local officials from office if they don't follow what the state says is the law. I mean, we saw this actually, a couple years ago when the removal of state attorneys, Andrew Warren in Hillsborough County, Monique Worrell in Orange County, and it seems like every other week, Attorney General James Othmeyer is threatening to do something with Monique Worrell in Orange County. We saw what happened there with Jerry Demings, Orange County mayor, about a month or so ago. I believe it was on the DOJ effort. I'm getting confused, but again, this is another unprecedented action where so there's also, I should say, a separate lawsuit on immigration when it comes to the enforcement of cities doing 287G immigration agreements with ICE. The point being is that there's all these threats now. We'll remove you from office if you don't comply. And obviously, as Jerry Deming said in the case of Orange County, I can't take that chance. Who are they going to put in here? Other than who the people have elected right now. So this threatening level of government to abide by the state is unprecedented, and I'm sure you don't approve of it.
Absolutely don't approve of it. And listen, I think the individuals who are being threatened should push back. At the end of the day, at some point in time, somebody has to push back on this foolishness that's happening. The governor is abusing his power to punish officials who don't bend to his will, even when they're following the law and serving their communities. Removing officials for not following partisan politics, that is authoritarianism. That is not democracy. And I'm gonna be very clear on that. The governor is twisting authority meant to protect Floridians into a tool for silence and dissent. What has ever happened to that? When have we gotten to a place to where individuals who are duly elected or individuals who are living within the state of Florida or within this country, by them just expressing themselves for whatever reason, just because you remove them from office for no other reason but for they are not doing what you say, but they are following the law. I cannot wait until we can get off this ride in the next 2 years, because enough is enough. And I think Floridians, Democrats, Republicans alike are like, can we get back to the basics, and can we get back to really helping people who are in need and what we're supposed to be doing in places of leadership, and stop with the political theatrics?
Senator Jones, you talk about wanting to get off this ride because it is dizzying and sometimes it feels violent and disorienting. Going back to what we talked about at the top, so much talk right now about wanting to leave divisive rhetoric around, but behind. But at the same time, you watch these messages from the White House, the social media comments that Mitch was alluding to. But we want to turn the temperature down, as you said. But at the same time, there's folks out there whose rhetoric is quite juxtaposed to the policies that they're supporting. Can you talk to me about some of your Republican colleagues in Tallahassee? And more specifically, is there anyone up there with an R next to their name who can actually lead the way when it comes to moving past this outrage and division? Like, who are those people? Who should more moderate folks be looking to right now as far as a voice of reason from the right up there?
Sadly, I don't know. I don't know because I just haven't seen it yet. What I have seen over the past couple of days, since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, has been this is the left. The left has caused this. The left are the individuals. You have Nancy Mace, who got on and said that this is the Democrats. This is blood on their hands. And now we just saw the alleged suspect. He's not trans. He's not gay. He's not any of. He's not left. He's none of that in which was said. And I'm hoping that individuals who have been spewing this type of divisive of politics would take their words back and call this what it was, and this was an act of strictly gun violence. Every leader, from the president on down, has a responsibility to bring the temperature down. And I'm speaking up from both sides. Whether people agree or disagree with me, or whether I agree or disagree with you, we should be able to have discourse with each other. We should be able to disagree with each other with me not wishing or wanting harm for you. But you're right. If the president of the United States would have got on TV and would have spoke of more of a unifying message, we as a country probably could see some type of turn of events in how people handle themselves. But that's not what we see right now. That's not what we saw these past 2 days. What we have seen is the president inciting violence across this country. And it's unfortunate. And when leaders fail to do that and work to bring the temperature down, it feeds the division and it makes our democracy less safe.
You know, so many of the best elected officials, as far as my time on the show, are so in touch with their constituents in a really intimate way. And also, you know, the people in their caucuses tonight, the summer conference for the LGBTQ plus caucus of the state kicks off in Florida. But, you know, on top of policy and democratic things that you guys are going to have to figure out, how much is tonight going to be kind of a, I don't know, hand-holding, hugging thing, just kind of like a real get-together to kind of talk about the fears and the future after the events of this week, do you think?
Yeah, listen, I am an advocate for, when we come into these spaces, I am an absolute advocate for coming together to be able to embrace each other as humans. Not based off of your sexuality, your color, your any of that. I think these type of opportunities and spaces should be availed, and I think we will probably see some of that today. My hope is that when we walk out of the room, it's not just a rah-rah session, and I'm not just talking about tonight. I'm talking about throughout this weekend, that we all walk out with a sense of urgency of what it means to galvanize people within our own communities. So often we're finding ourselves preaching and speaking to the same choir. Sound very good too. But the problem is the individuals who should be on the ground, who we want to be on the ground and listening to our message, they have tuned out politics. They have tuned out the message, and they want nothing to do with it because of the divisiveness. And so when we come together, we must unify ourselves to be able to go out into the world or into our communities to show them we are unified and we are collective and what it means for us to walk hand in hand as human beings, even if we disagree with each other. And someone has to lead with that. And if it's the LGBTQ caucus, then let's lead with that. We can be the ones to lead it.
We are speaking with South Florida Democratic State Senator Shevrin Jones here, almost a half hour, 11:30 here at WMNF 88.5 FM. A few more minutes with the senator here. I want to bring some good news to you, maybe, Senator Jones. I believe you're supporting David Jolly for governor. Is that correct?
Yeah, listen, David Jolly is the candidate that's running, yes.
Yeah, so I want to bring this up because there was an internal poll done by the Miami firm of Ben Dixon and Amati International this week that not only would Jolly give some positive news to Democrats, but also on a couple of big issues. And I'll talk about the issues, just going to get to Jolly. So we mentioned the ban on vaccine mandates that the governor's proposed. So this poll, it showed that 48%, excuse me, let's see, it's... banning 60% people oppose banning vaccine mandates in the state. Just 37% support it. So I know some of your Republican colleagues were kind of wanting to see where the people were at. Well, that's where seemingly on that issue is. And then also, we haven't talked about this yet. This whole proposal for a mid-decade redistricting of the congressional map, which I know Democrats are outraged about. This is, of course, a dictate from President Trump concerned that the Republicans are going to lose the U.S. House of Representatives next year. The governor said he wants to do this. House Speaker Daniel Perez has called for a select committee to look at this. But the poll showed, again, that 48% oppose a mid-decade redistricting with 41% in support. And I did another story about Common Cause, which is a good government group who was against this as well. They did a national survey and then also individually in different states, similar results in Florida, and actually a plurality of Republicans, not a majority, but a plurality of Republicans were against the proposal to redistrict the congressional map here in Florida. Not that that's going to stop Governor DeSantis, but nevertheless, you must take some solace out of those numbers.
Well, listen, I'm not surprised that the numbers are where they are. And I think once people start hearing more of David Jolly, I think once people start paying more attention to what 2026 is, the importance of 2026, excuse me, I think we will see those numbers change a lot. Listen, Byron has walked hand in hand with Donald Trump, and not just with his rhetoric, but running this country into the ground.
You're referring to Byron Donalds, the congressman who was the top leading Republican candidate for governor. Yeah.
Yes, and so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised of those numbers and David Jolly being so close.
I'm sorry, Senator. We should say that I should mention. So the poll on David Jolly basically showed a statistical tie with both him and Byron Donalds. I think he was up by 2 points, and then he was behind 2 points to Paul Renner, the former House Speaker. Neck and neck, which is kind of shocking if this is actually even quasi-accurate, because if the thought has been that this is going to be a blowout next year, and Jolly's looking somewhat competitive, at least from this poll.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That I'm not surprised with those numbers because I think people want different leadership. The Republicans have been in leadership in the state of Florida for almost 30 years.
Right.
People's lives haven't gotten better in the state of Florida over the past couple of years. Communities haven't gotten better over the past couple of years. Florida has become so unaffordable. People are leaving the state. Our tourist industry is in turmoil right now. Tourism industry is in turmoil right now. So when you look at those numbers, that is a direct reflect of people saying that they do not want this type of leadership anymore. And I think they too want off this ride.
All right, we'll leave it there. Miami-Dade County State Senator, Democratic State Senator Shevrin Jones has been our guest. Shevrin will be up here this weekend as part of the Democratic LGBTQ caucus taking place in the Tampa area. Senator Jones, always great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right. Before we go to Tom George, we do have a call. We have Simon on, who is a longtime caller, and I do want to hear from him right now. So before we go to Tom George, let's bring in Simon from Lakeland. Hi, Simon. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you, Mitch, for taking my call. I was just watching MSNBC, and they were talking about the bullet that struck Charlie Kirk, and on the bullet was inscribed by the shooter, "Hey, fascist, catch." Now, my question is, because he was talking about gun control, when people are using the word Nazi, if you call me a Nazi, where do we go from there? Because we all know what we're trying to do against Nazis.
Right. Well, Simon, I guess, what do you want to say here? I mean, you got the platform for a minute here about this, what we've been going through in the country the last couple of days since the Kirk assassination.
Well, it's unfortunate. Whether you agree or disagree, what I've always said is that we're talking past each other. We're not talking to each other. But the issue was more when I look at the assassination of this 31-year-old man, to me, it was more of an assassination against his Christianity. So you have people that were against what he was proposing as a value system, a nuclear family, pro-life.
But they just brought the guy in. Who was it? This Tyler Robinson. I don't think we know yet about all of this. I mean, do you know all this information now about him? Didn't know exactly what he was doing?
Well, some of this reporting was coming out of some of the Israeli national news that I read, and it's a little bit before what was coming out in the USA, only because, I don't know, maybe there's some sources there. I have no
I don't know. He's only been in apprehension for 2 hours, though, so I think we should hold off on what he was about. We're going to all learn that in the next day or so. So maybe.
No.
Yeah,
I'm talking about what Charlie Kirk was about.
Yeah, okay.
Charlie Kirk was pro-life.
Right.
And
he was a conservative. I mean, yeah, we know that.
Family.
Yeah.
So you have an individual who, when you write on the bullet, "Hey, fascist, catch," what does it say?
Right. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna comment. Thank you, Simon. Though, appreciate the call and call back next week. We'll have more information about Tyler Robinson, and we can really know about that. Okay.
Take care and have a good weekend.
Okay. Thanks so much. Okay, Ray, we'll give you Tom DeGeorge here to start off the next part of the show here.
Yeah, I mean, Simon talked a little bit about, wanting to connect with people on a more human level, door-to-door level, and this whole Charlie Kirk conversation and these huge macro issues, and people talk about the way they want to participate in the political process and what they think it should look like. And they do all this, on social media. And then in the meantime, somebody's out there saying stuff like, well, your local elections matter, and that's where the real change is happening. And we just had a big one kind of wrap preliminary, the first round of it here this week. It feels like for the whole summer we talked about Tampa's District 5, or at least a small crew of people did. Yeah. A special election triggered by the untimely death of the late Tampa City Councilwoman Gwen Henderson. And there were 13 candidates, if you count the write-in in there. And one of the first to really jump in the race, and certainly probably the one to really make the biggest splash when he jumped in around 4th of July weekend. It was Hot Dog Party. July 3rd was Tom DeGeorge. And he ran a valiant campaign, earning 9.7% of the vote. And I'll just say this, in a district that has never been represented by somebody who wasn't black, as a white man doing that. Tom is here to talk about his race, talk about the future. Tom, speaking on connecting with people, you guys ran a really grassroots campaign. You guys know how many doors you knocked on yet? How many did it feel like?
I mean, that was, I did get out there, but our team and all the volunteers worked really, really hard. I mean, probably hundreds of doors. I mean, we made thousands of calls. They worked really, really hard. I think we all worked hard, but the team and our volunteers really bought into, what we were trying to do, and that it was a team effort, and I felt like we worked as hard as we could.
Every year at the Hot Dog Party, you give a speech, and it's a famous speech, and you talk about it as not the critic that counts.
So Teddy Roosevelt,
yeah,
the man
right.
in the arena.
That. In the arena.
It's one of the man in the arena.
Yeah.
I tell people the first time I ever heard that was my boxing coach, because I was going to have my first fight, and I was scared to death. I wasn't scared of the fight itself. I was scared what people would say if I lost. And so he gave me that, and it made a big impact. I still hate losing. It's still so hard to lose when you put so much into it. But, that I find solace in those words.
What was the process like? As we talked about, it seemed like you had a forum almost every day after this. This is like a crazy kamikaze type of race where, because of Gwen Henderson's passing, the special election was set up in a way that, again, almost unprecedented for any race that I've covered in 2 decades plus covering politics here in Florida, to see 13, 14 candidates in the race is crazy. God knows we had a lot of thoughts about this, even preparing a debate here to do that. Obviously, you were there every day, part of that. So that was unique, I think. And, for any candidate, this is, I think, your first time running, right?
Yeah, this is the first time I ever ran.
So what was the experience like now that it's all over for you?
I mean, it was very hectic. I mean, you have 14 people. I honestly thought, like, when it came to the time that some were going to drop off and we'd end up with like 5 or 6, that didn't happen. That was very concerning.
The qualifying period.
The qualifying period. That was very concerning to me because nobody dropped off, and I thought this is going to be very, very hard. Going into it knowing that there hadn't been a white person in the seat, it wasn't something that I wanted to run from. So I specifically told my campaign I wanted to do more forums than anybody, and I wanted to focus on forums that were in neighborhoods where people didn't know me as well, because I felt that, and this was probably my flaw, I felt like if I could go into those forums and I could win over 5 to 10 votes, which I felt like I did every single time, like going to those, I felt like I was starting at zero. So if I go into those neighborhoods, introduce myself, win those votes, I felt like my base was strong enough that I didn't have to focus as much on Ybor or East Ybor or the Heights. I just felt like I had it, and I probably should have went back to those places more. But when I did do the forums in those other areas, what we saw was that the majority, like we would get crowds of people after we got done talking at everyone. And most people that go to those, a lot of those people already decided they would have on somebody else's shirt, and they would tell me, I really like you. Like if my person doesn't make it to the runoff, I will vote for you. So I was setting myself up for, I'm going to make this runoff, and then we'll absorb these other votes. And I just fell just short, unfortunately.
You're not a stranger to asking for the things that you want so that your community can get help. During the pandemic, the National Independent Venue Association was founded. You guys passed billions of dollars relief package that went to the White House. Currently, even Trump is signing this, legislation to help with ticket scalping. Mm-hmm. That kind of politicking, that kind of handshaking, that kind of process of doing the politics, how different was it from what you had to do going hand to hand in District 5, this place that you've lived for so long?
I don't think it's, to me, the with this city council seat, like the budget's already passed. Right. I feel like the main job, what you're looking at, is advocacy. And I feel like I've been an advocate for over 20 years. I've always gone in front of city council when there was times within our district where I saw things that I didn't agree with. I did it, with the Save Our Stages on the state and the federal level. And I think it's just firmly stating your case. And I also felt like, that what I would have brought to the table had I got to that seat was the attention. I felt like my appearances and my social media was head and shoulders above anybody else. And so I thought, if I can get in there, it could really bring more attention to our local politics, and I could help in ways that I didn't think anybody else would be able to help,
if you're just tuning in, 43 minutes after the hour, you're listening to Skinny here in Mitch Perry Ray Row. We're talking to Tom DeGeorge. He is the owner of
Crowbar.
Thank you, Ybor City, and also
1812 North 17th
Thank
Street.
you, and we're talking to him because he came in fourth place last Tuesday night in the special election, Tampa District City Council of District 5. I want to read you guys Patrick Mantega's column from this morning. He mentions how, Tom, you won both Ybor City and Palmetto Beach in the election. Talks about some of the other candidates and where they won in certain areas. And of course, right now we do have Thomas Scott and Nia Young, who will be in the runoff in October. And Patrick writes, he's talking about different candidates. Are Tate voters supporting her for mature leadership or because she's a political activist? If it's for mature leadership, they'll break for Scott. If it's because of her political activism, they'll break for Young. Will DeGeorge voters prefer a new, fresh face to politics, Young, or someone who's proven to be a friend to Ybor City, Scott? Are you ready to say who you're backing right now?
We already, the campaign came out almost immediately to back Nia Young. I think, if you look at our slogan, it was Force for Change. Yeah. I think, and this is not a knock on anybody, but if you're looking at two candidates, you have one candidate that has run on experience and basically I'm going to continue where I left off. And you have another candidate that's new, that's different, that looks at things like we do need change, that it can't be business as usual. And, I think when you look at, going back to what Ray said at the very beginning, when you look at our local political system and you look at things that are happening on the state and the federal levels too with our country, you can't feel in any way, shape, or form that things can continue business as usual. We need change. And we need people in our local government that don't feel like everything's working the way it should, because it's not. There's a lot of people that are not getting the help they need, that are marginalized and are waiting for help and get it last. And I just think that, you've got someone who had a chance that's been in the seat for, I think, 16 years, and you got somebody young and new. And I think it's time to try to flip some seats.
Yeah, and I also want to say, obviously only 12% voted, which has got to be disappointing.
They're totally.
Yeah, and I think
devastating.
We knew that. I kind of knew that it was going to be low because people are not used to voting in early September. But also a lot
of people didn't even know that there was a campaign.
Right.
They didn't even know.
The press, obviously did the best we could to make sure people knew that. But I want to ask you, going forward. So next election, regular election, is going to be in 2027, and what's going to be in the springtime. That's when Tampa does elections, and there is debate about whether it should continue in the springtime because the numbers of people vote during our regular elections in Tampa are pretty low, relatively speaking, compared to doing it in the fall when people are used to doing it. St. Petersburg used to do it that way, and we also in Tampa do it in an off year, 27 as it were. And St. Pete used to do that, and they still actually do that. Well, they changed it. Okay, now it's all changed. They had a referendum, and they moved it. It was in the fall, but now it's going to be even near the presidential year. So I guess the first question: do you think that the elections should continue in the spring, or should they go in the fall, where everybody else is voting for every other office?
I mean, I don't think that matters.
You don't?
To be honest with you, I think
but
people
there definitely will be more people voting. Okay, but people will be voting because maybe it's just the Senate race, so there'll be more people going to the polls anyway. I mean, just naturally. That's just because it just
do you have a preference on what kind of system you'd want to run? Would you want to run on a ballot that was pretty crowded, where your race might be on the third or fourth page, or do you the one we got this?
I said, I think our real problem is people are disenfranchised with the process as a whole. And I think that I know when I get a ballot that's got 1,000 things on it, I don't even want to fill it out.
I see, yeah.
And I think that it's just, capturing the audience of the communities to make sure that they understand who the people are, what's important. It's just like when you have a large Senate bill or something, and there's billions of things snuck into it. I think having all these names on one sheet is going to make the trust issue even harder because people are going to be like, they're trying to force this all down my throat.
This is all super fresh. Obviously, Tuesday night is when everything came in. I remember being in the office pretty late, so we're just a couple of days removed. You spent about half of your $18,000. Mitch, you talked about Patrick's numbers and running the numbers. Winning your neighborhood, winning Palmetto Beach, how much have you been able to get back in touch with your campaign and make some decisions about where the rest of that $9,000, that $9,000 is going to go, and how much you're going to activate with Naya, and what this next month looks like, because the election will happen very fast, this runoff?
Yeah, I told my campaign manager that we'd get together on Monday. I needed a few days. I still haven't really had time to think about everything. And, we just jumped right back into, I literally lost the race Tuesday night, and we had an event Wednesday, Thursday. We're doing the Loud on 7th Festival
right now.
Right now that'll have 4 events over 3 days, and so the thought was like Monday morning, I'll clear my head a little bit and get with campaign and talk about some of that.
So, a lot of the thoughts and issues were similar, right? And I know that must have been really tough for you when you go to these debates night after night after night. But was there some parts of the city government or policy thing that wasn't on that you knew about, because it goes you're doing your perspective from what you do in your life and where you live in the district, that was surfaced that you're like, okay, that's another issue, that's another problem that we need to tackle, or that you just like surprised you? Because there's a lot of repetition in these kind of forums, obviously. You hear a lot of the same things all the time, which has got to be really tough for all the candidates. But something that came out of there for the city where you're like, yeah, we really need to do something on that I wasn't really aware of.
No, I think I had a pretty good understanding of a lot of things. I think that, I was strong on, local business, on the arts and what the arts actually is, on public safety, because I have a background there. And I think if anything, I was trying to educate myself as quickly as possible of the needs of a lot of those communities in like East Tampa and Sulphur Springs, because I have been predominantly, around that Ybor, East Ybor, Palmetto Beach, downtown Channelside, Seminole Heights area, so the areas that I wasn't as familiar with, I was reading and learning as quickly as possible to try to convince people that once it became my responsibility, that I was going to fight for them as hard as I could and address their needs and take care of the things in their community. So I felt like I just had to, absorb it as quickly as I could. And because of the repetition, it became more and more familiar as I would talk about it. I would learn more even from other candidates, from people afterwards when they would come up to me. They'd tell me more about their neighborhoods, and I would learn more. So I was learning on the job.
We have about 8-9 minutes left. If anybody wants to call in and talk to Tom DeGeorge, candidate here for the Tampa City Council race, who finished fourth last Tuesday night, please give us a call, 813-239-9663. We've got a caller here, Jimmy. I think, I don't know, we're going to bring him on here. Hopefully this will go okay. Hi, Jimmy, you're on WMNF.
No, it won't take very long. It was just about Charlie Kirk, and I'm sorry to distract from the topic.
Sure, that's okay. Tom can weigh in on this.
It was just a rebuttal about Simon's comment about those Christian values of oppressing women and not giving them a voice, and they need to stay in their place. And then Charlie Kirk's thoughts on the Second Amendment, that if there's casualties, I'm all right with that. Well, he's a casualty. That's all I have to say.
Tom, as a candidate, you have any somebody?
And as somebody who has to deal with this every day, I mean, I know during NEVA, there's a huge thing about public safety. You're in contact with local police all the time. You've spearheaded efforts in Ybor to up public safety, especially during the, I don't know what you want to call this part of the pandemic, the reopening. Maybe that was something in Ybor. Yeah. How does that, these events kind of square with you?
I mean, we live in very troubled times right now. That's all I could say. I mean, we live in very troubled times. But if we continue to perpetuate the type of language that is fueled on hate and divisiveness, as people and also as our leaders, I mean, we have a serious problem here, and I think, the internet, like just everything about the temperature of everything is completely turned up, and but I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, because we got to look at it. Where these messages are coming from.
That's what I think that's the conclusion, right? I mean, it'd be false to say, it's going to change.
I made a post yesterday just talking about the helplessness of things. Like, you feel like there's no turning back from where we are as a country right now. And it doesn't help when you look and you see all the other atrocities that are going on right now all around the world. There is hate and violence like everywhere in the world right now. So it's a very defeating thing. And I think that's why people, I've said before, like, life isn't a spectator sport. Like, you got to get in there and desperately try to do something, to help.
In your own way that you can,
leaders like Dr. King that talked about, love. We need more of that now. Like, we need
more love, less divisiveness.
For sure.
And I don't
scary times.
And we're, to be all due respect, we're not going to get it from our top, and that being the president. We're not. President Obama was considered like the what was it? He did many things, but like, obviously when there was a national tragedy, he would
consoler in chief,
that's what I was trying
things
to think
like that.
Right. That's not going to happen in this case here. Let's got DeAndre. He wants to thank Tom DeGeorge for his business. DeAndre, you're on the air.
DeAndre,
I'm sorry.
DeAndre, now you're here.
Now you're on the air. I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, I thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. DeGeorge. I'm from the area, and I've seen a lot of. Well, first of all, I want to appreciate his campaign, but then I want to acknowledge what he does as a form of business, which is really bringing people together. And it's like through a lot of music, different varieties, local artists, and then as well hip hop with, dance crafts, b-boying and such. He's been doing that for a long time, 30 Sundays. And like that actually foments a lot of, well-being and well wishes, whenever those things are had. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank him for, trying it out with his campaign.
Tom, I want to ask you,
thank you for that.
After the storm, Dennis Amadeus, local poet, curator of the Poetry Slam at Grow House, he came over and he helped me clear my backyard of stuff.
Dennis is a tremendous human being.
And on our drive back to his place, he mentioned how he wasn't political anymore. And then you entered this race.
Yeah.
And Dennis was one of these guys who wasn't political, quote unquote, who became political because he believed in you. You are a self-professed introvert, but you talked about getting in there and changing things. And oftentimes a campaign like yours can inspire people to run and do more. Can you talk to some of those people who are on the fence about whether or not they want to jump into either a race like yours or into their community, and what that feels like and how they can get over some of those initial, introverted feelings and latch on to their desire to make a difference, and maybe how they can protect themselves and move forward and continue to make an impact?
I mean, making yourself vulnerable is a very hard thing to do. Sharing personal struggle is hard, but like I said, I just feel like we need more of that right now in the world and in this country. I think candidates, you've talked to me about this, like, well, now you're a politician. Listen,
just
people
on paper.
are tired of the word politician. What people want is somebody that speaks to them, that makes them feel comfortable, that makes them feel safe, and that they trust, And so if me entering a race inspires other people to start paying attention to their local government again, then I think that's the type of people we need in local government. You can learn policy. You can't teach compassion, and understanding and wanting what's best for people.
Well, let's go to another call. There's somebody else who wants to congratulate Tom DeGeorge for his race. Jarvis, you're on the air.
I love Jarvis. Jarvis, I'm serious.
Jarvis, are you serious or are you curious?
I'm serious, Jarvis.
Was he serious or was he curious, Jarvis? Tell us.
Right. Is serious or are you curious? The thing of it is, George, I want to say something to you, man. From the first time you came to the candidates roll call, and you have just been a good friend, man. And you got in it for the right reason. And you showed up, man. I had a concern because you probably could have won this thing if it wasn't certain people in the race, but you stand-up guy, and you endorsed Naya. I know Naya since she was a little girl. I know the whole family. That was stand-up guy to me, brother. Especially coming from a Caucasian gentleman. Racism out here now, man. This is just
Jarvis,
bad, brother.
Stay with us here because we got about 30 seconds left, and I want to ask Tom this. I want to get your take on this. There's citywide seats going to be up on city council soon. Would you like to see Tom run for one of those? And Tom, right now, do you see yourself doing that?
I would be very excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the forums we were asked if we would run again in 2027, and I said yes. It's definitely something that's on my mind. I got to take a little bit of time. I didn't even when the plan came together, I didn't factor in possibly losing and how bad that hurts. But I'll make a decision here soon. But I appreciate the support. I have a lot of respect for you too, Jarvis.
John, let me say something real quick because I only got a few seconds. See, that's what I don't like. I don't like all the people start running, then when the chance to use your political capital that you just gained, that question should be, I'm going to do what I need to do to keep making a difference. If you believe that you could have made a difference in 5, then you can make a difference in citywide. Thank you.
I know.
Thanks,
Jarvis.
Jarvis Elamine, of course, famous host of Tea and Conversations and guest on this show. Thank you so much for calling in, drivers. Thank you to everybody who called into this show. Thank you to Anthony Madure, who handled those calls. Thank you to Skip Sassy on the board today. Thank you to Senator Severin Jones. Chev, thank you so much for being on air. Enjoy your time in town this weekend. Tom DeGeorge, thank you for coming in, talking about the race with us. We look forward to hosting you here again on behalf of myself, Ray Roa, my co-host, Florida Phoenix's senior reporter, Mitch Perry, and the station at large. Thank you so much for your support. Joel and Shilke is in Studio One, ready with Art in your ear. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting WMNF Tampa. Have a great and safe weekend.